Okay, I'm back. You guys probably didn't even notice I was gone. It's actually another day. So, I'm a little more awake, one would hope. We're going to start the crown. And I found this one that I made with a silver lined sort of amber topaz thing going on. And I didn't like it. It was just too big and too much. But it's kind of good, I realize now, for us to be able to look at one that's not already assembled. Because this is what we're going for. Now, this is the part where I 100%... I say there could definitely be ways out there that are easier than the way that I did it. Because I don't follow patterns, even though there's probably some right over next to me somewhere with about these things. But often I might do ways that end up being harder than they have to be. But I find ways that work for me. So if you have a way that makes more sense to you, then go right ahead. The funny thing was, I hadn't made them in so long that when I made the first one, not this one, but one of the first ones of this new batch a couple days ago, just to get back into my, groove with them, for lack of a better word, I had actually twisted them together into the cup and then laced them like that, which was really a pain in the neck. Like, really a pain in the neck. But I think that was not this one. Where did they all go? They're not in their little... previously, I think it was this one right here. And, you can't really tell, so it's fine. But it was definitely a pain. Oh, sorry, let me get under there. Definitely a pain in the neck. So what I do is, once I get my loops together, as I do, I get out some, in this case, now here's where you really, really, really want to make sure you have a strong lacing wire. And I'll be honest, I'm not convinced about this one, so we might have a teaching moment involved in it. You could just use that stainless steel one I use all the time, but I actually want to give this one a try. I want to get, it's a little bit of a trial by fire though, because to lace these crowns / cups, whatever you want to call them, you really have to yank them tight. So let's cut off, make the edge a little bit smoother. That got a little bit kinked up. And, I just cut off however much, I don't know. I like to have a lot to grab onto, so almost like 10 inches is way, way, way too much. Way too much. So if you're conserving wire, you do not need that much. You just need a few inches past how much you're lacing, which is, I guess, is what I got. But I really do need to hold on. Now, because I haven't made an inside or an outside yet, it doesn't matter which, I start with, what direction, because I can just flip it around. So... and I'm not going to lace from the middle, right, because it doesn't matter. There really is no middle. It's a cup. So I'm going to lace going this way, which means that I'm used to poking through like I do with leaves or petals. And so, because we did 17 beads, there's 8 beads on this side and 1 on top. So if you want like a tight cup, meaning just a little fringe on top or a deeper fringe, choose where you lace. I only want like kind of a tip of it. Like I'm just going to just tip that down a little bit, right? So even with this one, you can see that I'm just tipping down a little bit. This is one of those bigger ones with 7 instead of 6. Another option, you choose, right? So instead of going right in the middle, I'm going to go 3 beads down, not including the top bead, right? So 3 beads down on the side. And I'm going to go over this side, and I want to, when you're doing it, if I'm going to lace going that direction, then I want... to have the exact opposite of what I had. I want to have the short one starting out on the far side. Wait, did I say that right? No, the other way. Oh my goodness. Sometimes I start on that side, doesn't really matter, right? So I'm going 3 underneath. Push this one back up, make sure I'm getting that third one. And don't worry, they're going to straighten it themselves out. So I'm putting it down the 3rd bead, not including the top bead, right? I'm going to flip it over. So I want the long side now, the longest side, to be going that direction. And because I'm going to twist at the end, I do want a little bit more than the average on the end. So maybe like almost 3 inches sticking out on the weighting end. I know I'm blocking this with my hands right now because I'm working with a new wire. You get to work with me as we figure out. I mean, I've used this for other lacing, never for this though. I don't think ever. So 3 down again. And then cross her over. Just make 1 cross is fine. Do a little tight to make sure it's really tight in there, that crossover. Now my hands are kind of messed up, so particularly more than normal. So this is good for me because I like lacing left to right. So now I have my longer side here. This is waiting to be tied. And I'm going to go every time, I'm going to go the same number of beads down, not including the top. So I'm going 3 beads down and then poking through. And yes, you're going to have to watch me do this whole thing because there we go. Or maybe I'll pause it in a second and then restart. Okay, so again, we're going 3 beads underneath that, not including the tippy top bead. And let it kind of pull itself together. When you're doing lacing continuous loops, it's kind of cool because all you got to do is just go in like that. You don't have to like, and then for this side, all you have to do is go around it, right? You don't have to like go through until the very last bit right now, you go through the middle loop. But other than that, they're actually not so bad as just regular basic frame rows where you have to go in and out every time, right? So I'm going in, 3 beads down. You don't have to do 3 beads, but just be consistent. If you want to have a flouncier cup, you know, like with a bigger, you know, bend on the top, then go 4 beads down. I wouldn't go less than, but actually maybe you could. You could make it like one of those almost straight cups. So again, 3 beads here, coming around, and I'm really pulling this tight. And I'm trusting that it's not going to break. Or like I said, otherwise we're going to have a teaching moment. So that'll be interesting if that happens. So far, so good. You can see why I chose this one. It's the champagne gold. I like the champagne gold for this because it matches very well. But, you know, these, don't get too hung up on that. I get way too uptight about stuff like that, and I need to let go a little bit. Like, I'm not an uptight person in general. I don't know if you can tell. I'm pretty go with the flow. But, like, when I do my own stuff, it's, you know, I like this. I get uptight on myself. I'm not uptight on other people. That's what's funny. Whenever people ask about the flowers, you know, one of the first things they say is, how long does it take, right? You know, out in public. And then the next thing they always ask is, or say, or state about is, you must have so much patience. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, maybe for this. I guess because I like it, right? It's like teaching teenagers. For some reason, I seem to have infinite patience for them, but for adults, not so much all the time, or for myself. But I was like, no, it's not patience so much as I just like doing it. Because I don't think any of my friends or family would use that adjective for me as a defining feature of my personality. Patience. No. So it is kind of an odd endeavor to pick up if you don't have that patience, right? But I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that have the same thing where patience is not your virtue, and yet you still, snapped it, teaching moment. So here's what I would do if I snapped it. I would never use this again, but apparently I don't listen to myself because I want it to match. But keep that in mind when you go forward going, this is not the best one. So I'm going to poke through, going back a few petals or back a few loops. I'm going to poke through and just start lacing again, right? Same thing where I'm going to poke through, coming through the third one, pull the furthest away one a little bit tighter. I want that to be a little bit longer, but not much. And because I went so far back, I'm not going to worry about like, you know, double doing it or how it works out. It's fine. It's far enough back. And then get back into the same little spot. If you can, which you can, pull it in there. See, right now I'm pulling it in there. And then pull your longer one across. So funny, I'm just yapping away and then off it goes. Oops, I think I pulled it the wrong way. Because I'm yapping. So I made the long side this side. It's long enough. We'll go with it. I should have done it the other direction, but I've kinked the wire now. So I pulled the long one because I wasn't paying attention. I was too worried about talking and showing it. So I did the short side where the long side should be. But it's long enough for this. Okay, so I just start lacing again. It's going to be a little bit thicker there. I'm sure there's other ways to fix it, but that's how I fix it. I do want to go back a little bit so that it doesn't unravel, right? There's still a strength to it. So I would go back at least, 4 rows. So like 2-ish or 1.5 loops. Okay, So sometimes you can't tell what the top one is for that. Even when this is flopped over to the side, I look down at the bottom to see if it's longer or shorter. So it's longer there, so I know that I need to push it that way a little bit. So that's my top one. And then I don't really worry about it being top. I'm just using it for my count right now. Okay, so I'm pulling that through. Do not have this short of a thing. I'm probably going to pay for that when I put it all together at the end. Now, that's my top. So 3 down from there looks a little bit wonky right now. It's getting a little bent out of shape. So I'm pushing it up. So this is the one part where, but to be honest, I'm way more, like I said, uptight about these things than you need to be. Because it will come together. It will. Okay. So now we got that done. And they're all laced. I'm going to get rid of this long one I messed up on. That should have been the other direction. Learn from my mistakes. What does that phrase? Do as I say, not as I do, or something like that. Okay. Let me cut that little bit off too. So now I made this a little bit too short, so it's going to be a little bit more of a pain in the neck than it needs to be. Choose longer wires. So at this point, normally I would have the wire exposed on the outside. So I'm going to turn it around this way and make my cup going that way so the wire is exposed on the outside. But again, don't get too hung up on that. I even will take maybe my little needle nose pliers and do a little bit of a like kind of bend to these to make sure, because the thing about the cups that's kind of cool is they're going to feel real loose and real shaky when you put them on there. But once you put the petals on, they really settle in. And so don't worry about that. Like, look at how firm this is in here now. But when I first put it in there, before I put the petals around it in the assembly, it was just flopping all over the place. See, look how firm that is. That's in there. So a lot of things will come together in the assembly. So at this point, this is where there might very well be a better way to do this, and I absolutely welcome you to do it any way you want to and share or however, because here's where I get a little bit picky. I want this like cup shape, right? So I'm going to kind of shape it a little bit as I go, kind of pushing it down. I'm going to bring these I'm going to bring it all the way around so that this guy and this guy, the bottom wires, are right on each other, and twist them up. Twist them about 1/2 inch at least down. I'm trying to show you at the same time so it looks more clumsy. If you don't have to show like a camera, it's not that big of a deal. Don't try to mash them too much, but I didn't realize how much I like kind of used holding it until I had to be careful of how I hold it because of the camera. So twist it, about 1/2 inch down. That got kind of a wonky twist. I did not intend that either, but that's okay. See how it got a little bit bendy? I think I tried to use that word before. Now at this stage, I don't know, get something that is round, a pencil or the end of a paintbrush, and I just kind of shape it a little bit. Now be gentle. You're not trying to stretch out that lacing. You're just shaping. Do not jam anything in anywhere. Do not get aggressive with it. If you got issues you got to take care of today and you got this is not the place to take care of them. This is not the place to have your aggressive issues come out today. If you're, mad at someone and want to break a plate. I'm just thinking of that because I'm going to do those garden mosaics with my niece. That's our project to make stepping stones for her mom for Christmas. So, we're talking about breaking plates a lot. So, went to the local thrift shop and got a bunch of cool old plates. And they're going down. A lot of them were chipped to begin with, so don't feel bad for them. Now, here's how I used to do it, and I don't know why I'm changing it because they're still out and about. I have a couple of old Narcissuses that I made like 2 years ago, and they held up just fine. I have ones, there's some out where I don't know where they're at with people I don't know. But that one I gave to my sister is still doing just fine. And so what I did was I just twisted these together. I got kind of fancy with these other ones because I got paranoid. Is it going to break apart? So I actually wove, went in one, and kind of went across and pulled them tight like that. But you know what? Why? I don't know why. I don't know why I got all nervous because, like I said, they're surviving just fine. And this is just like extra added busy work. So I wouldn't even do that. I would just, just tighten the wires together and off you go. even though I'm doing it right now. I mean, I don't know how much extra security it even gives you, to be quite honest. So, and I've never done it before, the ones I made a couple of days ago, and there it is. So you can do that if you're a nervous Nelly about it, like I was being, or you can just twist them. There's going to be, and in fact, I feel like this almost makes them less close together. So you're trying to keep these last two where they meet up close together. And so you're just going to twist these two wires together. And you can do that without weaving them across like I just did. You can just straight up twist them. Now, with lacing wire, when you twist, if you twist real tight, it will absolutely snap, even the strong stuff. So when you twist, make sure you're pulling it out at the same time. Pull it like away so that you're not putting too much stress on the twist, because it can't handle it. It just cannot handle it. So if you're just twisting it and staying in the same place, it will eventually snap, which isn't the end of the world if you got some twists on it, but you know, otherwise you want to kind of make sure that you can, you kind of pull it away so that it's twisting tightly, but it's not twisting like we're so tightly that it's going to snap. So just twist out. I normally would even do half this, but I'm going to experiment right now and do about 1/4 of an inch of a twist, because we're going to tuck it back in on the inside, and it's going to be camouflaged by the little stamens that we put in the middle. So you can kind of tuck it in, and I'm thinking maybe it's easier if it's longer. Oh, it's way easier if it's longer. I'm going to do that every time now. I would do it like half that length, but who cares? Because it's going to go, you just tuck it right down in there, you know, with tweezers or with your forceps. Now, I've said this before to you guys, I don't know when, but at some point, if you don't have a pair of forceps, get some. And, you know, I will not be telling you to spend money on things unless I think, and these are what? I don't know, $5, and I use them all the time. You know, get the curvy ones. I think they're better. Sometimes you get a set with the curvy and the straight ones, with the curved and the straight ones. But it's like, for this kind of thing, it's just, and make sure you get serrated ones. Most of them are, I think, serrated edge, because then they just grab right on your wire, and like it just tucks it right down in there, and now we don't even see it. Now we don't even see it's tucked in there. And on top of that, or you can get, well, these have their own place, but you know, you can get really skinny serrated, I like these serrated needle nose pliers, you know, but those, see, look how thick they're jamming. The forceps are just more dainty, you know, or you get micro needle nose pliers. These are handy to have too. And you can find good deals on these. They don't need to be like, you know, super expensive. I'm trying to hold it so you can see it. This one's really teeny. Okay. But I think for this, the best one, however you're going to work it, and you can also use it to gently turn back your tops and make your little, choose how furled and how much you want it to go back. And then keep in mind, you got that one sticking down there, stick her down there even further. Okay, gently. I just want like a little tinge on the top, because I like those like almost straight cups, which you could leave it almost straight, right? Because we saw how many they have, especially if you did a bigger one with 7 instead of 6. So, doing that, making it nice and smooth. And you can do one last bit with your pencil or your thing. And again, do not over stress it. This is, you're kind of just using it to shape a little bit. Keep these straight. You can use your fingernails to get them back in line. For some reason, this one, you know, get them, there we go. Kind of shape it around that, shape it on the bottom so it cups. And you know, see, this one's kind of separating a little bit. Put a little bit together. Or not, because I can't do it with my fingers. And I don't think I can get my teeth in there right now. So, that looks pretty good. I'm happy enough with that. So, there's our cup. So far we have our cup and we have our, you go away. And we've learned a little lesson about the champagne gold wire, that I probably don't want to use it for lacing when it's high stress. The other thing too, and this is not as big of a deal, but you can do with your tweezers, is we want to kind of make this, we're going to put this on the center, on the stem wire. So I'm going to kind of give it a little bend. So now you can see how it, let me get these out of the background. You can see how it kind of, now it will hit the middle of the stem wire. But the cool thing about this is that once you lace in those petals, it's going to hold itself pretty straight. Now, the next thing we want to do is get rid of this. Why did I put these and not take them out? And where? Oh, where? I'll put them in this little Tupperware until I put them back into their thing later. So, for a lot of the stamens for many flowers, like especially my violets and pansies and stuff, I love this particular bead. The Toho Peach Cobbler Ceylon Matte. 148F. I just love it. I think it's such a great middle bead because it's bright without being in your face about it. And again, I don't think the color right now is doing anyone favors with the color on the screen. So we're going to do stalks, which means that we have to cut wire because, hang on, I'm only doing a little bit, so I'm going to use my little spinner. So I'm going to use this champagne gold. I could probably just use gold. I thought I took out a gold. Oh, there you are. So I'm going to use 28 gauge with this because I'm doing the stalks. So far, remember, we did 24 gauge for the petals, 26 gauge for the crown, and now we're going to do a gold wire, just a regular gold 28 gauge. It already has some micro beads on it, some teeny weeny vintage beads, and they're so hard to get on that I'm going to push those down and not mess with those. Okay, and so these you can just cut with scissors, right? So you're only doing 3 little stalks of either 7 or 8 beads. I like them to kind of stick out, so I'm going to do 8 beads, but if you want them shorter, you do 7 beads. So, you know, what do you need? I don't know. I'm going to cut way more than I need, so maybe like 9 inches there, 9 or 10 inches. And if you're saving wire, you definitely do not need that long. I always overdo the wire because I need to have something to hold on to. Not because I'm being careless with my wire and throwing it around. Wow, this does not look as... I gotta do something about this lighting situation. Doesn't look nearly as cool and orangey and warm as it does. It looks like really bright. Gotta figure that out. Okay, oops, I wasn't paying attention. So I'm gonna do like 7 beads, or actually I'm gonna do 8. Now I'm so picky, here's how picky I am, that I'm gonna do that thing because I want that one bead to show up top. So I want it to be a nice bead. I want it to be a thick bead. I don't want it to be like a skinny bead. So I will literally go and pick that's a good thick one. Make sure that the top bead is nice and thick because I don't want to be looking, especially with this one, because you're looking straight down. All right, so like for example, what I mean by that is you're looking straight down, right, into this thing. I don't want to be looking at the hole of a bead right there. I want to be looking at a bead. So you've probably done this a bunch of times, right? So I hold for me, anyone, hold my other 7 under here, push this right on through, and then hold it here at about what I want. In fact, I should have had more wire on this for me, but it's fine for that. So 10 inches is pretty good. So when I get the tail that I want, which is about maybe 2.5 inches, 3 inches, I'm going to pull this tight, pull it tight this way so it locks it in. And then I go and get my vinyl blunt pliers, which I always have handy. And so if you don't have some, get some. I use my fingernail, kind of straighten it up a little bit, pull it up a little bit so there's a little bit of a loose loop there. And then I hold it here straight. And it doesn't always go the right first time. I use my fingernail to kind of bend the wire at a 90-degree angle right underneath it and kind of jiggle it a little bit just to really get it in there. And then I'm going to tighten it up. And now, even if it's a little bit sideways, that's fine. These, you can straighten it up again. Because what we want, right, is we want that to be so that I have one that's going up. So now when I look down at it, I see a bead. I see color, right? I know it's kind of hard because it's a bead. We're literally looking at a bead. So I'm going to do another 8. You're only doing 3 of these. So I'm going to do another 8. Pick up 8. I was like, I picked up too many. And I always look at that last one to see if it's wide enough and if I like it. Because I really want a big bead at that end. And I know it's probably only like 0.5 millimeter. I don't care. I'm just that uptight about it. You don't have to be. So putting it through again. Then once I get it through the top bead, right, we just kind of flatten them together like this. It's kind of hard to do without showing. Push them all through. And then make sure you're holding your loop here and kind of guiding it down because you want the base of this to be right up on the base of the other one. So you're going to guide it right down in there. Let it be in there. If it doesn't get there, that's okay. You're going to wrap it anyway, but it's just easier. So I'm pinching right there at the bottom so that my bottoms stay together, pulling it up, and then locking it in straight. And it does add time when you do this thing, but I think that detail, see, look, here I'd be looking down at wire in a hole. I don't want to look down at wire in a hole. If you want to, that's cool. That's fine. I'm not trying to judge. I'm saying for me, I'm judging myself. I don't judge other people's stuff. I love other people's stuff, no matter what happens with it. I think it's cool. But for me, I want to look down at color. I don't want to look down at a hole in some wire. So, especially when that's like, there's not much else going on there in that middle, except for those 3 beads sticking out. So you can kind of grab it. That takes a little bit of time, you know, grab it. You have to kind of finesse it in there. Got to kind of finesse it, right? So I'm trying to like get that bottom. This one, the tighter you do this on the bottom, the actually easier it is to do this because there's less play. So the wire, see, like, look how easy that one went because I was so close to that. There wasn't enough wire, so it just kind of zhuzhed it over. I didn't have to convince it, you know. Okay. So, oh, there we go, 8. And that one looks wide, looks good. So, they look kind of like they're almost translucent and they're like semi-matte. They're really cool. I love this bead. I've never made a flower out of them, so I buy tubes of them and they last really long because I'm always just using them for like centers of flowers. Someday I should just make a flower out of them. They probably make a really pretty like sunflower or daffodil for that matter. Okay, so again, we got our 3 here. Notice, right, from the side, I want to see the hole. From the top, I do not want to see the hole, so I still have to do this little maneuver after I tighten it down, right? So I'm going to tighten it down and then I'm going to push that other side. So I'm kind of pushing that wire so that it makes that sort of, it looks like it's even, right? And kind of really clamp it a bit there always with your vinyl ones, and then pull. Make it tight. So now when I look down, all I see is top of bead. So that was about 10 inches. And to be honest, I didn't give myself that much. I would not go any less than 10 inches because you need to wrap these things. In fact, I'd probably go a little bit more. That was probably like more of like a 9.5. But anyhow, so I would probably, I have 2 sets of reading glasses on my head. Oh, Lord. I'm sure this happened to many of you. Okay, pausing to find my stem wire. Why am I always opening new packs? Because it all looks green. I have to definitely come up with a better organization. I have so many different stem wires, and yeah, I got to come up with a better system for that. Okay, so I would just use this. My default is the 16 gauge. I think it's the Panacea brand that you just get it like Joanne or whatever. Going on your coupon days. Those are fun. So with this one, how to say this? Because I don't want to say, like, I don't want people to go, like, I have to have other kinds of colors of tape. Well, yeah, you kind of should. Because in this case, if you look closely at those pictures, there's a little nub right below the stamens there. And it is also golden. So if you have, like, you can just get those, like, sets on Amazon. It's worth it to have them around. They last forever because you barely ever use, you're always using brown and green. But you can get one, like this is one that I got that I haven't even gotten to the golden one yet because I'm still using one from like 4 years ago. But, you have these different colors. The reason why is sometimes, I know that was really crinkly. Sometimes it's going to be part of your flower. So I want this to be part of my flower. Looking down, I want it to be a little nub of gold that you can see. So just for this part, I'm not wrapping the stem in it. I'm just doing my pre-wrap, my grabber wrap, as I call it, what I'm going to put my things on. You only need about, this is why it lasts forever, about, 5 inches of it. And sometimes if I also use this tan is a handy one. That's harder to find. I don't even know where I got that. I'll probably not be able to find it again. But this is a very handy one. Now, a lot of these, because you stretch them to activate them, they turn a lot lighter in real life. See, when you're actually using them, which is why I'm going to use this one. I also have actually straight up gold tape, which is fun for the holidays. But the problem with this, don't get too excited when you see the metallic gold. It's because it's foil on top of white floral tape. So this is an old one, it'll actually separate. sometimes. So don't get too excited with the, I got so excited and I have ones with glitter and I was like, oh, well, that's not that handy. As long as you're aware though. So something like this, as you can see, it kind of matches that. So I'm turning the top of my stem wire into a small but actual character in the play of my Paperwhite. So how we always wrap to get ready, or I do, is a wrap about, 3/4 of an inch down, wrap up until we're about halfway, until like we get to the point where half of the width of the tape is flopping off the top of the wire or so. Bend that down, and then bring it around and start wrapping down again. It's kind of like a one-sided burrito wrap. If you're from California, you know exactly what I'm talking about, I hope. So, and then I twist it. I want it to be a little bit knobbly because this is my grabber layer. This is the one that I'm going to, I'm going to assemble onto. So I want things to actually fit on there. Now, this is an old pattern for me, so I'll be honest, I'm thinking like I'm not doing it the easiest way, but there it is. So you actually should have longer ones, at least on one tail should be longer, because we want more wrap. So that, I would say almost 12 inches of that. So you start with the shorter one, and bring her around, wrap it up until just about that much, or so, whatever. You don't want to go too much to the top, because and this has happened to me. I will literally wrap it off the top and not realize until later, and then everything's flopping around. So, and plus we want a little bit of a nub in there. So, maybe, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch, something like that, 2 millimeters, depending on where you're from. And then we just wrap them down, right? And I would normally want a little more wrap down, but I am an over wrapper, which has its own set of problems. But I do get paranoid when I send them out into the general public that, that they need to be super fortified, right? So then just bend them up, looking good. So now I'm going to take my cup. Now you want to do your light wire all the way down as far as you can with that. And you might even have to cut it because we're about to thread it through. Now this is where, oh, and by the way, I would normally do like cut it into 9 inches because I don't use these for big arrangements. So I'm going to do that right now. Cut it basically in half. So save that for the next one. Now, I was like, why does this seem weird? So we're going to thread it through the bottom. Now, here's where you're going to have to, be a little original, because you got to make sure these don't snag in the other side, that they go straight through. It's easy enough to get the stem wire through, obviously. I know it's not focusing where it should. Can't do anything about that. Working on it. Low tech, high tech. That is my motto. So then just kind of, finesse it on through there. Word of the day, finesse. If you see that it's going through the edge, and sometimes if you go too far down and this is too tight, the bottom of you might have to actually corkscrew it on, right? And so you're going to shove it on through there. I'm having a slight feeling that it might, no, we're good. It's just tight. So, and that's okay. We don't mind if it's tight, but you don't want to pop the top off. So you want to kind of screw it on. You don't want to jam it on. Now I'm trying to see if I did go through an edge here, and that's why I'm snagged. Oh, I did go through a loop. In which case, then I'm just going to go like this. Cheater, because it's not the long one. And then I'm going to keep going. I'm going to cut that little end off and then wingle it up, which might not have worked. But I think what happened, by the way, was that I got one of my, no, it's okay. You can cut really close to the stem wire, and that'll help with that. Now, there we go. So kind of screwing it down there. Pull you out. I have never had this much trouble. It's because I'm on screen, right? There we go. Pops on through. Get it to the base, basically. And I used to then take this and wrap it around, but that makes too bulky of a stem wire. But I do want some support on it, so I will start wrapping. Now, I'm going to use these wires here, so, silver's probably just a fine thing to use. I'm going to use, because it's here, I'm going to use this antique white 32 gauge. But silver's fine, too. I like, if you have the white, it's kind of a harder one to find sometimes. Though they have it at Paperwhite in big rolls, which is cool. I just ordered some new ones. It does blend with the leaves a little better. But silver's totally fine. So I'm just going to do a quick little wrap to get my crown just kind of settled down. Right. And now we're in the home stretch. Oh, we haven't made our leaves yet. I normally do that. So I'm going to assemble this and we're going to go to leaves. And these are really easy. So I'm going to do a 3x3, which means that I do them kind of 120 degree angles from each other. That, do not worry about that. That's just dividing up a circle evenly, right? So, and I'm just doing a couple of wraps all the way around, keeping them right settled in there. Right settled in there, push it on up. I'm trying to, it's making it look harder than it is because I'm trying to hold it so you guys can see it. It won't be that hard when you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so again, wrapping right at the base. Wrapping right at the base. Doing a couple of wraps because we did that little tamp down. Checking down here. Don't worry about like the even spacing until you get them all done because, you know, as you wrap, things get a little bit wonky anyway. So just do them like what you think is even. See, and just holding them and then pulling around. Couple of wraps. I know, I'm just wrapping. And now we look down. We're going to look down and we're going to see that they're about, you know, even. And then let's get this guy on here. Then we do our second row underneath in the empty spots. And try to keep for the sake of your stem wire, you also want to try to keep your petal wires as straight down your stem wire as possible so that they'll each, now that doesn't always happen, right? Things get wonky as you wrap. But you want to make sure that, you know, as much as you can, you want to keep your petal wires in between each other so that they're not double, like, thickness on the stem wire. So, like, right down there in the middle. So, another thing that's hard to show because I'm holding it, right? I'm holding really hard with my thumb and using my fingernail to actually guide the wire to stay up to the base of the petals. Now, last one. And under we go. And holding it up, pushing it up. See, again, you can see the whiteness on here as I'm pushing the pressure. Make sure that you don't, nope, we're good. Snag your wire on the bottom of your basic frame. You want it to go around bare stuff. And so I'm going to get, at this stage, I'm done. Now, if you want to, don't do this. Probably I shouldn't even show. I do sometimes tamp down here just a little bit more to get even closer. You absolutely do not have to do that. I shouldn't have even done it because it makes you feel like you have to, I think. Okay. And so just go a little bit past. Now at this stage, depending on how you're doing that, I should have had the leaves made, but I normally don't. I almost always do a pre-assembly anyway and then do the leaves because I'm not sure how many I'm going to put on there and so on and so forth. So do a nice tight wrap. Now, when I say tight wrap, everything should be a tight wrap, like in terms of pressure. And I think I've said this, I see a little snag up there. What I mean when I'm saying tight wrap is not how tightly you wrap it because we're always wrapping it tight. It means like how close the rows are. Like this one's so tight that it's almost like perpendicular as it goes down, as opposed to like a loose, like barber pole kind of wrap like that. That would be a loose wrap. See how the spacing? Sometimes you do loose wraps because you're just finishing. Like right now would be fine because I'm going to finish it out. And I don't have as much to control anymore. And that wastes less, that uses less wire. So I'm going to put this aside for a moment. And I like it. There's our guy so far. So we're pretty much, I mean, the flower's done. And you can always go back in and see now, look how that is really in there. Like that guy's not moving. I'm not even kidding. Like I'm not trying to fake it. That is not moving. So don't worry about how like loose your cup seems when you first strap it in there. Because when you put the petals in, if you put the petals in tight up on the bottom, holding them always like pushing up and using the wire, sliding off your fingernail so it's just right at the bottom. If you do that, it'll tighten up that thing. And then you can go in later with your forceps and make more of a cup. And notice also that the lacing is fine. We had that little moment and it's all good. It all came out good. You can look down. Now, if you don't have that golden wire, tape for this, don't worry about it. Use the lightest green you have. That could also be part of the character too. There could be green in the middle. We saw all that variation. I would probably use the lightest green I have, but, because I use actually a dark green. I like a dark green wrap on my daffodils and paper whites. So Now we're going to go to leaves. Speaking of dark greens. So I like the contrast with a dark green leaf. So I use my darkest matte transparent bead. And apparently on these leaves, I use 2 or 3 of them. With the leaves, again, it depends on how you're going to use it. If you're going to put it in a little arrangement, you might want the leaves to be freestanding, and then you place the blossom in its own like in its own stem wire, and then you can have more control if the leaf is on its own stem wire. So we'll make one and stick it on there just to show you how you do it, but you might not even want any on there. Or you might want to do a whole arrangement just of Paperwhites, and then maybe you make some freestanding ones and have ones on your stem wire and both. But there's our guy, and I think that's a pretty darn cute one. Now, I went the more narrow and the smaller cut, right? So I did 8 beads, so it sticks out a little bit, literally by 1 bead. So if you want it to be flush with that, then you'd go the 7 bead option. These are all yours. I'm not here to tell you how to do patterns. That's a different video, and that's great, and that's instructional, and those are awesome. That's just not the way I go with mine. I'm telling you how it works for me, ways I vary it. You do your thing, right? It's kind of like the old, well, then I sound like I'm trying to sound like Jesus, but because I'm not. But teach a man to fish, he eats for his lifetime. Give him a fish, he eats for a day. I said that backwards. So that idea is like I want you guys to be able to kind of go out and do your own thing in general, not just on Paperwhites. So you can keep them flat, you can bow it down, they cup these up with a little swirl. The cool thing about them is, like we saw in the beginning, a lot of variety. But there's our little guy, and he's super cute, and I'm actually super into this new bead color. It's slightly creamier. Let's see if we can even see the difference, shall we? Where's my other guy? Did I lose him? Huh. That's literally the one I can't find. It's hilarious. Of all of them. Oh, there it is. The 6 I made, or 7, 5 or 6. So this was my original go-to creamy color-lined glossy bead. I'm wondering in this light, you probably cannot even see the difference, which is the Toho, which I still totally love, but it's nice to have a snowier, whiter one, and I can definitely see the difference. I don't know if you guys can, but because the insides are exactly the same. So this one's just a little warmer, a little more creamy. This is a little actually snowier. So stoked to have the option. I'm going to make a magnolia out of that one. I love making southern magnolias. They're one of my favorite kinds of flowers. We have a lot of them around here, even though we're not in the South. So now all of these were pre-wrapped with a dark green. Now, and then you can go on and strap your leaves in later, right? And they're a little bit, I don't really care about the pre-wrap one, how smooth it is, if I'm going to go back and wrap over it again. So there's our guy. Let's get to our leaves. So I'm going to use for these a check bead. Oh, by the way, we're doing a 2-inch basic, round bottom, pointed top, 5 rows. And I don't even think I used to lace them, because I would have written that, but I would say lace them now. Lace them. I took it out. The other one that might be good for this is, it's like this brighter emerald, sometimes called jade, depending, and there's different brands, they call them emerald. But it's a little bit brighter than I'm aiming for here. So I'm going to go, oh shoot, I just realized if I'm going bright, I should probably not be doing it on black, but I don't have anything handy and I don't want to stop. So we're going to put this old piece of cardstock down that I was using for something else. And that's at least a little bit lighter so you can see the darker things on top of it. So there's this brighter green, this emerald matte transparent, but we're going to go with this check bead that I got at General Bead, and they call it Evergreen. And so that one's always kind of fun. I'm looking to see where, are you serious? I had it out and then I just throw it away somewhere. So that one is check, so it comes in a bunch of hanks, and you can get it there. I get it by the ½ kilo, and apparently I lose it. How does one lose ½ kilo of beads, one wonders? Oh, there it is. I lost 2 ½ kilos the other day. I found them, but that's okay. So they come in hanks like this, right? So, and it's a really good go-to. It's a smaller bead. It's check bead, so it's less. This is a lot of hanks to get it, right? It's a little less predictable than, say, a Toho in terms of sizing, and it's also just smaller in width. In certain ways, or So, you know, but it's a good sea glass, sort of bottle green, really darker. And I like this one a lot. So, not super expensive for what it is. You know, 500 grams. I don't remember. I haven't bought it in a bit. I haven't, because I don't use this nearly as much as I use the Matsuno and the Toho Olivine, which are slightly different from each other. That's why I get them both. So we're going to use this evergreen, as they call it. And so I always like to have all my greens my husband helps me out with that. I give him my paddle wire and he loads up. I'm about 12 feet. This must have been a one because he normally gives me some liter space, but this one doesn't have any. So we're going to have to get it. You know, some blank wire in the front. He's very nice to do that, having sympathy for my wrists. Okay, so you want to have, you know, some blank wire in front, which is harder to do now that I have about 18 feet pre-strung. Not really, but I have about 10 feet on here pre-strung. It is a handy thing if you're just sitting around, you know, just keep your greens, things you use all the time, you know, get them set up. You know, I have like so many, you know, like this one's ready to go now that's pre-wired because I'm always going to use that. And I do so much with that, you know, with that pearl silver wire and that matte, that ivory Ceylon transparent, that I'll often have that a lot preloaded. This one looks a little messier because it's work in progress. But with the greens, I use paddle wire, 26 gauge paddle wire. You've probably heard me say that a million times if you've watched anything. I like it because it's thin and stiff. It's so easy to work with, and I haven't had problems with it. I wouldn't use it on petals, even even if there were a green petal, which happens, because it's not that fancy. But it blends, it works. It's so good. It's nice to take a break from 24 gauge and yet still have stiffness, right? So we're gonna do about 2 inches. It doesn't really matter because these aren't, so just cut it off. I actually did 2 beads longer than on purpose. You don't want them to be the same length, right? All of them anyway. So these are all suggested lengths, right? So 26, and we're going to do round bottom, pointed top. Let's do a quick, and this stuff, the cool thing also about paddle wire is it's cheap. It is cheap. So, give yourself a lot of room with it. Work with it. Don't be scared. Now we're only going to do 5 rows. And I do love the stiffness of it, even at the 26 gauge. It's like the dream wire in terms of working with it for me, because I get that stiffness that I have to do with 24 gauge, which, is so much thicker, so it's harder to do, but it's also thinner and easier to work with. So it's like best of both worlds. If I could do everything in green paddle wire, I would be so excited. But that would not look too good. Could you imagine that Paperwhite and green paddle wire? That would be a big no. So now when you're doing ones this long, right, things tend to get a little bit wonky, and you still want to keep it close, right? So you're going to start at the bottom. Don't worry too much about round, because we're going to bend it to give it that pointy shape. So don't get too uptight about that shape. Just keep round in the mind here, and then like kind of do that shake thing. So we're really keeping close, and see how I'm pushing down, because I'm trying to make sure that, and this isn't even that long, but 2 inches is longer than most that we start with, right? So I'm holding the top bead here, pushing it down from the middle wire, and then I'm just I want a tight point like we did with the petals. I don't want an elongated one. I only do those in special circumstances because I really do not like to have that. Gives you a little more play on the center wire with the beads, and I'm not into that. But that's me again, my uptight stuff. Don't let it flow onto you, even though I'm flowing it onto you right now. Okay, so right about 1 bead up past that, I'm going to do the same thing we did with the petals. I'm going to hit it like at an X, bring it around, and fold it down. And I'm pushing hard right there at that thing and folding a tight fold, right? Tight fold. Don't worry about this bowing out because we're going to lace it back together. The joys of lacing. Now, I'm always holding this top to keep things in place in between. I should show you, right? Same thing, doing a pointed one. Gently nudge that top gently, or you'll just mess up your whole system. Nudge that top bead on top, and then use the beads underneath and pull your wire straight. Get enough loading beads. Now it's all on the ground, so I gotta pull it up a little bit. And then just I always push in like this because I want it to bow in the wire so that it's actually pushing itself flush against that row. So when I do that, I get a bend to it so it gets flush against that row without me having to push too hard. So I just kind of meet it at the bottom, holding it to keep it tight now that I know that that's what I want. And now I'm push up with my fingernail, and I want a round bottom, so I'm going to cut off right. I would actually want half a bead here. So I'm going to see, because I want to keep it tight. That's good. You know, always just check, like bend it in. Does it work? Because since I might even want to cut that bead off. Let's see. Yep, that's better. Because I want it to be kind of tight. If it's bowing on itself, it's fine, because I'm going to shape this thing later. But you got to be careful, because if you do that too, it could make the middle bow out a little bit, because it'll be too long. But it's only one bead, so you make that judgment call. And every time you go, do that little shake, keep it together, and we're only doing 5 rows, so no big whoop, off we go. Let's bend this one up. Again, we're holding that thing. Remember, we're making a round bottom like we talked about. So we're holding this bottom so it's straight out, holding that bead and pinching it right there. Pinching it and then guiding it up where we want it to be. Shape that wire, because I haven't said it this entire time, and not consciously, I just haven't. Because who's the boss here? I am. You are. We are the boss of the wire. So make it do your work. Now, then cut off just right above, like, you know, so it makes a little V. This one, again, I would probably go shorter than you might think. And I'm actually bringing this top wire, I'm bending it to meet it. See, I'm actually kind of manipulating it at the same time. I should explain what I'm doing, huh? So I hold this one with this, that's why I need that little anchor knot, holding that tight between them, and I'm kind of bending it over to meet this one. I'm forcing a point on it. But that's good, because I'm going to bend it, so I want it to be tight. And so now I do a twist and bring it down, fold it down, just fold it over, right? And always shaping as you go, right? Shaping as you go. It's not magic. I mean, I'm not like, oh, I'm sorry. You can do that too. Keep it nice and pretty all the way. Your hands will get kind of, if you're a beginner and stuff, your hands will get used to like just doing that. I don't think about it. I just do it now. My hands just automatically shape it as we go. Sometimes too much, like right now. Calm it down. Okay, push my little point one back up. Do my little bow in. So notice I'm kind of pushing it past the rows, not even flush on this side. And so now bringing it down, using the pre-bend of it, keeping that straight. But when I did that out there, and bringing it down, kind of just holding it the whole time. I'm realizing, like, when I'm trying to show this and not hold it, it's making me mess up a little bit. So now, notice again, I'm white here pushing. So, because I want to keep no gaps. So I'm pushing here. And now that I've got, this is locking in what I know I want to be, I'm bringing this down, and you underestimate what you think. And really tight wrap that one and lock it in there like we did with the petals. Lock it in there. I even like jam it up a little bit over there and lock that in there. Okay, so now I just do some quick wraps down. And because I'm not worried about, you know, relatively speaking, the price of paddle wire, relatively speaking, I'm gonna use all 3 wires too. You don't have to. You can change that later. You can always reduce, right? But for leaves, I tend to overdo that. That's, again, my thing. That tie it off so that it's ready to go for your next one. Cut off your top about 3/4 of an inch down. I always keep, for me, like this little thing. It's like a little garbage can on my desk, because otherwise I'm always like trying to put the ends, you know, in. So that's kind of a handy thing to have. If you have a little receptacle, I'm sure a bunch of you already figured that out. But that, you just keep all your little cutoffs here and then dump them all at once, instead of always trying to keep track of them, or they're flying around, or you're trying to get them into your actual garbage can to the side. But keep it like having your own little mini garbage can for your ends, odds and ends. And then you can, okay, then we flatten this, and this is pretty sturdy stuff. This rarely snaps, so you can tap this pretty tight. I mean, it's still not hard. Notice I'm just like, tick, 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 tick. I'm not like, rah, 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 on it. I'm not sure what those sound effects are, but they're supposed to indicate a lighter tamp versus a mashing down. Okay, so this one, to be honest, I almost wouldn't lace it. Am I horrible to say that? I'm so bad. Because I never laced them before, clearly from my notebook. So with these, you know, you might want to just, the cool thing about using kind of a darker green, you know, the wire, is it blends, and so there's nothing, and they're so small, so you can kind of shape it up like that, you know, however you want to do it. Look at some pictures, you know, give it a little bend. You're a little fun. You can go the other direction. If you don't want to do it, you can do either the cup out with an out, like this would be it would be like this on the flower, because I've seen some with both. Or you could go the other direction, flip it around and have it be like sort of an up cup thing more, you know, so it's like cupping around the flower. But you should make that decision before you, because it will change the way you wire it in. Because you'll actually literally do it. I mean, it's not a big deal because there's so little exposed that honestly you can change it after the fact. But you will expose your stem wire if you do that. So you can choose to do, that's kind of a nice accent, or again, choose aesthetically to flip it completely over and do a cup up, push this down, and then have it be like that. That is completely up to you, but again, that will change how you wire it in. I'm trying to see what I'm feeling right now, and right now I gotta say, I'm saying I'm probably gonna have to lace it, is what I'm saying. So with this dark one especially, I'm gonna use a 32 gauge black. And it only takes a second, so it's just after that cup, I'm kind of like, I need a little break from lacing. So get it back in order. I still don't think you have to. I just cut off that piece and it's just gone. Because I'm on a black. Wait, nope, that's not it. Wait, is this it? There it is. Okay, so you only need about not even 6 inches because you're doing so little. Just go straight through the middle. I probably go still slightly closer to the top, slightly. Oh gosh, I still have black, burgundy alcohol ink like all over my fingernails. Do not be alarmed. Okay. So let's say, you know, I do it slightly more towards the top just because that's the part that ends up like getting seen more, I guess. Cross it over. Let's just do a fast lace. That's probably a little bit higher than I'd want to do. The middle's always safe. Again, me being uptight about it. Yeah, isn't that funny? People always ask. I'm sure you guys know if you've shown your flowers around. You like to family and friends and stuff, even they're probably like, how long does that take? And I'm not trying to be cute when I answer that question, but I will literally say, I don't know. Because if I thought about that, I would probably go a little bonkers. Especially when you're like selling things and you're like, huh, I sold that for that, and yet it took me 16 years. So, I don't want to keep track. I'm doing it because I like to do it, so it doesn't matter how long it takes. That's something you keep track of time, right? When you're not actually having fun doing what you're doing, mostly, right? Tedious things. Then I worry about how long they take. If it's something I like doing, I don't care how long it takes. Because I'm doing what I want to be doing. So I'm lacing, and I always go double through on the edges. Again, paranoia. So, and then there's always like the top 3 things. So I had to make like a card for this one place or whatever, like this postcard thing. And I was like, I'm going to put on the back of it like frequently asked questions. How long does it take? You know, are they fragile? You know, and then like comments. People always say like the top comment besides a question that people will say is, oh, finally a plant I can keep alive. I'm like, well, that's cool. More power to you. So now we laced it just once through the middle of school, and that just takes that long, right? What was that? A minute and a half. And now you can choose whichever way you want to go. So we go back to our little flower, which has gotten a little bit, the stem has gotten a little wonky because I've been bending it to be under the camera. Yours will be nice and straight, and you can bend it later however you want to. Now I'm kind of at the mercy of how I bent it before. So I still, even with the flowers, let me get a darker green. I still like to, I wrap before I attach. Oh, I don't want to use this green. It's this weird rubbery green, which is really handy for an underlayer. It's just not that pretty. I actually like them to look kind of papery. I took a roll out and I had it here. Oh, that's good enough. I like the papery look of, some people don't like it, you know, and they floss things, which totally go ahead. I kind of like the papery look because it makes me think of those vintage botanical prints. So I'm going to attach it down about here, but I find it hard to wrap the floral tape around if that's already on it, right? As I'm sure anyone would. So I will actually start without the leaf being attached, and I start a little bit below the flower, and then I push it up I push up, especially into those ones that are higher up. Push it up, even if it gets wrinkly looking. Push it up. Because I'm doing that. If I'm not doing a calyx, which you can, just do some continuous loops or do one of the cone ones, whatever you want. But this one I'm not going to do one. So I push it up, so I'm using this as further fortification and to kind of build up a calyx kind of looking or a top of a stem looking situation like there is in nature. Now, once I have that, then I will, make sure you pull your tape. It activates the wax, whatever that means. So now once I have that kind of all the way up to the top, even if it's kind of, you know, crinkly because I made it really tight and sometimes got folded over, then you just go back and go down from there, and you want it to be smooth. So this is how I roll to keep it smooth, right? I'm sure you guys all have your own methods. So I'm going to pull it down. I'm doing a tight wrap. Now, again, when I mean tight, I mean that I'm going like almost straight across as opposed to like a barber pole, like way down, you know, like as opposed to this, I'm doing that with it. So I'm keeping it kind of tight. Now, you can go past where you're going to attach your leaf. And in fact, you have to, but I mean, you can just keep going. Once I get down past this place, notice how my top is kind of curved under. If that happens, just push it back up. Sometimes I want that to happen. Not particularly here, though. This is kind of hard with this little weird splint thing on. Just stay. So then I turn it around, and I find it easier to do it this way. So I'm going to keep going down. Now I'm not going to care as much about how it looks because now I am going to be wrapping over it again. So go down, you know, obviously past where the flower's going to, I mean, the leaf is going to be. Chop that thing off. And then use some lacing wire. I'll just use this 32 gauge, you know, some wrapping wire. You know, 32 gauge, 30 gauge, either is, actually I'm going to use my 30 gauge black wire, which I have a big spool of somewhere, but I have to okay, well, instead of making you guys wait for me to find it, it's normally super handy. I will use 32 gauge. But you could use, I would probably use 30 gauge on this. But these are kind of delicate, so either way, you know, just kind of a moot point. Though I did learn the other day not to completely think all gauges are the same, which they aren't. When I did try to do my hydrangea components on 20 gauge wire instead of 22 gauge stem wire. And yeah, that was a big difference because there's 54 little florets. So over 54 definitely compounded the difference. Okay, so now I'm trying to decide, do I want to do it that profile or do I want to do it this profile, right? Which I would. Now, it's not the end of the world if you switch it around because there's so little paddle wire being exposed and it actually blends pretty well. But that's because it blends pretty well. I'm thinking I want to do it this direction because I feel like that is kind of, I have seen both on real life ones. So I'm doing it that direction. And I kind of want it to hit below here so it kind of just frames it like in a pretty little frame, right? It's like holding it up. So I'm holding it where I want it to be, taking about 2 inches or so of your wire, holding that down with your thumb and your other fingers there. And this is one of the ones where I'm going to pre-cut it. You do not have to do that. I'm doing it for the camera. I'm going to cut off. I'll probably need, you know, a little bit there. Because otherwise it's hard to do under the camera. So just wrapping it around real sturdy like. Wrapping it around. And you want it to kind of be out so you can do, yeah, I wouldn't even go above on this one. Just stay below it. Wrap it around as tight as you can. If one of your wraps gets loose, just pull it down and then wrap on top of that. And it'll tighten it up again. Now this one I'm seeing that it's getting a little bit further away because the way I twisted it, even though I tamped it down. So I'm going to force it back onto the stem wire instead of turning it sideways so that it'll stay more flush on there. And it is a lot easier to wrap when you're not attached to the spool. I guess that's a no-brainer. Now, you could do more, and if I did another one, I would do it like right here, but I'm not gonna like probably like 3/4 of an inch down, right underneath it. And in fact, let's see, I might have one that I can just put on there right now from something else. Oh, I do. Good. So you don't have to watch me make it. Is it laced? It's even laced. It's longer, but I'll take it. I don't think this was for this, but I'll take it. I mean, I haven't made a Paperwhite in a while, but it is an evergreen, long, skinny one. Cool beans. It's a little bit longer than I might make, but it's here, and I get to demonstrate what I would do then. I was like, I feel like I just saw one in my spare. It's always good to have spare leaves. So I'm backing it up a little bit. And then, oh my God, my dog's snoring. I don't know if you heard that. It's hilarious. He's getting on in years, so he likes to take a lot of naps. Now, that's obviously a lot bigger than that one. So I almost feel like I shouldn't use it. But it's cool that it exists. So I'm going to use it. What the heck? Nature. I would not do one this long if I were just making it. But I'm not. So it's cool. So wrapping it all the way down. Well, now I didn't chop off as much as I might have needed because I didn't think I was going to do two. So there we go. And it's not actually, it's kind of cool that it's longer. That's kind of cool. Happy accidents. That's the name of the game. Still probably, if I had made it, would made it shorter. But sometimes it's cool when that happens because I do end up doing things that I don't get as uptight about. Like I'm starting making some, off he went. Bye. It's on the floor now. That's going to be fun. Let's just cut off a little bit. And then I'll figure that situation out later. So, started making mistletoe, which is always a favorite. Because we actually have mistletoe occurring naturally around here. And I'm trying to, like, loosen myself up. Because I was trying to make it, like, super, like, realistic. Like, because sometimes it's a parasitic plant, which some of you probably know. And so, it lives in, like, these big, round, big, like 2 feet wide or more globs in other trees and rarely falls off. So, but when it does, my mom has collected a few pieces, so, around here. And so I actually like to look at the real stuff a lot. And, so I get really uptight about that. But this year I'm like, I'm just going to do different. I'm going to do like glittery leaves and golden leaves and bronze leaves. And of course my regular green ones, but maybe green with a rainbow finish, you know? So we'll see how that plays out. But I'm trying to loosen my grip on the reality a little bit. That sounds bad. I want to loosen my grip on that kind of reality. Okay, so now that we're here, pull your leaves out a little bit. Give yourself some breathing room. And start underneath your top leaf. This one's going to be in your way a little bit, and you can probably do that after too if you wanted to. Start a little bit underneath and wrap up to it. Now, if you want to do extra fortification, you can do that thing where you bring it over the top. Don't worry about it getting crinkly there. Don't worry about that crinkliness because you can come underneath and smooth it out. All right, come underneath it again, and it just smooths right. You can use your nail. You can use the forceps. You can use the bottom of a bead scoop if it's like one of those long ones. Like when I say that, I mean like this kind, not, you know, because you can use the bottom of that. Not this kind. This kind would be bad because everything's straight. But I guess you could kind of use the ends of it. Anyhow, so we're going down, but see, again, we can just smooth things out after the fact. And then under, I'm going to go under, and then I'm going to try to fortify it. So I'm going to come back up over and see when I do that fortification. You've seen me do this before if you've watched. I'm going kind of halfway in between. I'm letting it, I'm kind of tucking it in there, and I'm letting it like furl up and like crinkle up. I want that to happen. And then I'm going to fold underneath it because that makes it stronger. Okay, now we can bend these up and get them out of our way because I don't need them anymore. To have the space above, and down we go. After this, it's easier for me at least to like turn it around and then spin with my right hand and push it like I'm pulling it here, right? Pulling here, pushing down, flush against every turn, right? And then you can kind of get going fast if you get that little grip. You know, put it on the other side, makes it easier. And then sometimes your wrapping wire gets loose, so just pull it down so it's out of your way, like some of that like 32 gauge black wire got loose down here because I'm working with it. So that's okay. Give it up. We already got the wire, so we're as attached as we need to be. So pull that wire down straight so it stays out of your way and doesn't crinkle up under there. And we're just wrapping. We're wrapping. And with this one, I don't know where it's going, so I'm going to go all the way to the bottom. Now, I definitely, if you're going to leave it like this, you know, and you're going to put it in something where people can take them in and out, and it's not just permanently fixed, you know, there's bunches of ways. Now, if you have certain, and it's definitely not the majority, I have found at least, floral tapes are waxy and like in a certain consistency enough that if you bend them back on, you can hold them and they will stick to themselves. But it's kind of like electrical tape, right? It like doesn't really stick. It sticks to itself, but it, you know. So I do the same thing I do at the top, where I wrap it down till it's about halfway, like the width of it's like halfway, and then the other half's floppy. And then I do the bend down, and I burrito it back up. I don't know what the burrito is, but that's kind of like, if you ever watched someone make one professional. And then I bring it back up about it. You know, this is if I want it to be, if I want these to be freestanding coming out of vases and people are going to move them around, right? So then we cut it about here. Now, normally, even with this is a pretty good one, relatively speaking. So it's keeping its seal. But sometimes even with that, I will go back in with a super glue or crazy glue situation. Let me find one. My glue bin. Did you hear everyone hear my glues fall all over? And sometimes I like them with the brush, or sometimes I like the thicker ones. Thicker ones I don't use in general because they don't work for putting in the gravel. So it's very specific cases, but they do make it easier for the tape. But just use a little, you know, with a brush on it. And then I will just brush lightly. But this one's so good that it's actually hard to see where the end seam is. I think it's right there. And then just brush lightly, just on top for a second, you know. And now if you're not scared of super glue, which I have had to learn not to be, though be careful, because don't ever drop it on your pajamas or anything cotton or even paper towels, because it will start smoking and it hurts a lot. But I'll just use my bare finger. But I guess you can use a paper towel, but just with discretion, or even a Q-tip or something. But just be careful, because it, you know, here, I don't want to show you the way I do it, because I would not recommend it. I would just use my bare finger. But then you can just kind of rub it a little bit on here. Now, if it still pokes up after that, then put some underneath the sticking up edge and just hold it for a few seconds. So we're just trying to hold it down, just trying to seal that bottom in. So we're just doing a light layer, right, of it. And sometimes it will still pop up because you're doing it on top. So just put just a fine thing underneath it and hold it down some way. You know, even if you just be careful though using paper towels. Like I said, I learned the hard way. It can start making it smoke. It's a very odd thing to see. And that's one way. I mean, there's tons of ways. You can probably even just use a glue stick. It doesn't need to be permanent glue on it, because you just need it to settle down. So there's our little guy. I'm going to have to bend him so you can see him. There we go. So there he is. I don't know why it's a he. There it is. There she is. There it is. There they are. I don't know. But there it is. So, and I did kind of a bigger one. I wouldn't probably maybe do that big. That's probably, you know, at least almost 4-inch. So I would probably step up. If this is a 2-inch one, I'd probably go to like 2.5 or 3-inch, not like a 4-inch jump, but I'll take it because it may be able to demonstrate. And I like to put a little, there goes the rest of the glue. I have got to get control over, oh, holy cow. My greens are holding on by a skin of their teeth, the ones I took out to do the mistletoe with. I have a separate bin for them, and now, ooh, okay. Well, I'm going to get to them in a second. If you hear anything loud, that's what's going down. Okay, so I do like to put a little bend to them, but you don't have to. Again, I like to give them a little personality. Obviously, not this bend doesn't count. So I like to put a little bit of a bend, you know, so they're kind of facing the viewer too. And then you can shape your leaves however you would like to. And you can change them the other direction. It's just you're going to see your, you know, stem wire, your basic frame wires more. So that's our little Paperwhite. Isn't he cute? And the thing is, I noticed that I think that they look really cool, all different and together. That was them. They went down. Beads down. Beads down. That'll be fun. They blended in with my, what the heck was that I took out? Oh, colors for the poppies. The poppy petals and my different bins. That's gonna be fun. Okay, so I think they actually look really cool with the poppies, to be quite honest. I think it looks pretty cool. If you put a few, I know I'm so close with this camera that you can't, like I can't really pull back. And I ain't gonna, because this is how it's working right now. So you can put a few of these with some of your poppies. I think they even look good with like roses. Roses are like my nemesis though. They're like my kryptonite. But I don't ever really want to make them. But I love when I see people make them. But I've never found one that I like for me. Like I've made... That was when I think I even tried a pattern. But I didn't even try a pattern. Like, and then I tried to make my own. And that was just as bad. I was going to say worse. But it wasn't worse. But it wasn't better either. Just different. So... I like roses in real life, but for some reason I'm not that drawn to them beaded for my own stuff. Though I like ranunculus roses beaded. I like to make those. And I like to make beach roses, which are like a single, like the kind of English tea garden roses. Those are really cool. They're like a single row of petals. So 5 petals as opposed to like the more conventional ones, like, you know, the fluffiness of them. And they remind me of like an old English garden. So I like those. To make, but I don't make the fluffy ones that much, ever. I do make ranunculus, though. Interesting. So, anyhow, which is much fluffier. So, I think that they look really kind of pretty with a red flower. I did actually do an arrangement with a bunch of these and a ranunculus, red ranunculus rose. And I think it came out really well. That one's gone, but so I can't show you an example. But I think that the color fits really well with the red. I just think it looks good with blue. I think these, because it's cream, it looks good with pretty much anything. So these are great flowers to kind of have on hand that you can have they have personality. They're not just regular blossoms, which are fun too, but they have a little more going on with the crown. And then you can blend them, you know, you can work with them and have them with other flowers, have them together. I've never done this before, but I'm really feeling like I want to actually do an all different finishes and colors arrangement of Paperwhites, because I'm kind of inspired by that photo of the one where they had all those different varieties all together. And so I think that would be kind of cool. So you have a bunch of options. Wow, that looks so white. That's so cool. Why am I scared of just using white? I don't know. Like using this I made a long time ago. I had less fear of white then. It's funny to look back at your early stuff. I made this one a few days ago. This is definitely white, but it's kind of a weird white, right? This milky white thing. So making sort of an arrangement of a bunch of different finishes and colors, I think that could be kind of cool too, right? So have fun with it. I haven't said that yet. I'm not trying to have taglines here. One of my students, and when I teach math and stuff, I've had him for a few different classes, and he's always like, he picks up on my catchphrases that apparently I say a lot. He's like, say it. And one of the ones he always wants me to say is, it's chess, not checkers. So, you know, that one always sticks in my head, but I was like, oh, I must repeat myself then with that. So with this one, have fun with it. I'm going to repeat that because you should. This is the one right here that we made today. So that's our flower. And the rest of them are kind of, I'm really digging the weird combo. I don't normally like to mix finishes, but I'm kind of into it. It's kind of neat. It gives it a bunch of dimension, right? And I like this little blush one that just kind of like this outlier weirdo one that just kind of works too. So I think I might just keep going with them and you know, more on that later. But there they are. There's our pretty little Paperwhites. Here's the one we made, the only one with leaves so far. And have fun with this guy. I think we're done now, but you got it all done. And you can do these pretty fast. Because first of all, you won't be talking during it. And you won't have to worry about how you hold it as much. So you can get one of these little guys done pretty fast. The thing that's going to snag you is that crown. Practice with it. Don't get, you know, just do your thing. If you don't put it together my way, there might be another way you see that you can put it together. But it kind of all comes out okay once you get it. So if it looks really intense, these all kind of had that feeling, right? But they come together. Literally, you're going to put them together. They're going to come together. So be patient with yourself. And I am going to try doing that smooth sort of cup at the top. But in the meantime, I think this works pretty well. Now, last thing to sum up really quickly. We're going to sum up here. Is if... Wait, where'd my Poppy go? Get out of here, Poppy. Wonder how it looks with the saucer magnolias. The dark ones. These are almost like purple. I'm doing another one that's a much lighter pink. Here it is with a kind of a purpley pink flower. Huh. I just think they kind of go with everything, pretty much, right? I mean, I really do think they kind of go with everything. I do like it better with the red, but I wouldn't think this was horrible. I can't really turn it so you can see it, but that's kind of cool. So they are cool because the colors, the neutral, the light colors, you can put them in with anything you want to. I mean, you saw that one where I comboed them with the violets, and they look really good with the violet ones too. I'm trying to see if I have my violets around here, which I do not. Oh, I do. Let's see how they look. I know this is going longer than it needs to, but I'm experimenting. Feel free to leave at any time. So let's say here's some painted violets. These all started out as very light gray or very light amethyst. This one's kind of a whole different profile. I love it, but it doesn't go. And so here we go again with our violets, right? You know, you'd mix them all together. I think that just makes it pretty. I just love violets and that color together. It's nothing to do with me. I'm not like, I'm so cool. It's just, I think in nature, I think it looks really cool together. The violet and the cream colors, you know? So you could make a really simple violets. Probably need to be bigger than those little Johnny, because like I said, those little Johnny jump ups are so cute, but you want them to be able to shine, and they're tiny, and so I love tiny flowers. So to mix with these, you'd probably have to do a bigger violet, because you don't want them being overwhelmed and overshadowed because they are so cool. You want them to be able to shine. Here they're about the same size, so the violets hold their own against the Paperwhites, right? So, and this one, by the way, these are that same peach cobbler right there in the middle. I use that all the time on just single stalks for that. So that's a really easy, that's just how I do my violets, but those change too. Okay, so the point here is that, you know, you got all kinds of options you can use these for. Blend them, different flowers. And remember sizing. I want to be real clear. If you're going to go for that size that we just made, you kind of have, there's not that many options. So that's why patterns, you know, are great. But at the end of the day, what else are you going to do? Right? We're kind of limited by the size of the bead, you know. It's limitless yet limiting. Does that make sense? It does, right? Think about it. So if you want the more narrow one, you're going to do 9 bead, 7 row. So 9 bead, 7 row for narrow, the more narrow, longer one. And if you want the wider one, you would do 7 bead, 9 row. So you're just like you're flipping them around. So for your basic frame. Now for your cup, to do that smaller cup like the one we made, and the one in this one, the smaller cup, you do 6 continuous loops, and you would do them at 17 beads each. Now, if you want a higher up cup, then do 19 beads. Keep it odd, remember. I wouldn't probably go lower, but, you know, you can. It's your option. The other thing is, if you want a bigger cup, then add another continuous loop, and you can either keep it at 17. This is a 7 continuous loop one. You can either keep it at 17, or this one I amped up to 19. And there's one I even did with 21, but those were really narrow beads. So 21 looked about the same as 19 here. So add a loop if you want a bigger cup, right? Be careful with your lacing. You can have this lacing. It's kind of a moot point on the outside or inside, to be honest, because if you're doing a tight cup, it's still probably better on the outside. But even if it's on the inside, these little stamens here are going to kind of cover it up. So that's cool. I think they're the stamens. So, and then speaking of the stamens, if you want them to be flush, if you want them, they should be 8 beads if you're doing a larger cup. But for the smaller cup, If you want them to stick out by 1 bead, which I kind of like them to stick out just a little bit, then do them an 8 bead. If you don't, do them a 7 bead. And do that little turnaround in the top so that you're looking down always onto an actual bead instead of onto a hole. I think this is the only one that I didn't use that buttercup. This is a Topaz, matte transparent Topaz AB, which is also a great color for putting in the middle of flowers, but it's not quite as yellowy, so I kind of wanted something subtle since this was so shiny. So I went for straight matte. So, and again, we're looking straight down at the bead. We're seeing the color. We're not seeing a hole. And then these two, we want to keep a bead on the outside, so there's not, you're always going to see the wire. And that's okay. I mean, they're made of wire, so that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that you're going to see wire. But that being said, it's nice to have sort of like the color of the beads being carried all the way around, right? And make them as tight as possible because you're going to bend them. So even if they start bowing while you're wrapping them, if it's like a half bead would be a good cutoff, meaning like maybe I should cut off this one. It's like in between the two. Then underestimate. Cut it off shorter in each row because you're going to bend it, and then the shorter it is, the tighter it is, the less gaps you'll have when you bend it. I think that's a good wrap up for it. And that covers what we're doing here. I was trying to find, just really fast, I was going to show you what that bead was. I got a bunch of it, and then I didn't have any. So the center of this one is this one, which is a really great bead to paint also, by the way. Lovely to paint this AB finish. So this is a medium topaz. It's not light or dark. Topaz, I don't know what brand it is. They all have them, though, I think. So matte transparent AB Topaz. Of course, when they say transparent, they really mean translucent because I can't see through it. I can see light through it, which is translucent. I couldn't, like, read through it. Well, that's because it's really teeny. But, I mean, you get what I'm saying. So, that's this bead right there in the center. So, those also make good centers if you don't have this one, which, again, is a handy bead to have around, though. The Toho Peach Cobbler Ceylon Matte 148F. Okay, that's enough talking with it. And that's the end of our Narcissus. Why do I have such a problem with that word? That's the end of our Narcissus lesson. And next time, so that was supposed to be a fast one. It went a little bit longer than I expected. So next time we're going to do something that we can paint. And in the meantime, have fun with it. Gosh darn it, because these things, they can be tough to make sometimes. So if you're not having fun with it and loving what's coming out of it, then this isn't the path for you. But I'm sure if you made it through all that long of me yapping, then it's the path for you. So it's a moot point. So there's our little guy with our milk glass and our slightly peachy, blushy center. And just make different ones for the same batch. They go fast. Faster than me talking, and I am turning it off now. That was the other thing, is I have this new setup, so I'm actually, while I'm talking, trying to figure out how to get to what I need to get to. Okay. Awesome. See you guys soon with another fun adventure through the world of French beaded flowers. Aren't they fun?